listening to Convenience Matters, brought to you by NACS. We'll talk about what we see at stores and what the future may hold for our industry.
Convenience has traditionally been defined around speed of service. How fast can you get somebody in and out? But over the last decade, we've seen that convenience has really been defined by choice. What do you offer in terms of food, both indulgent and healthy? What do you offer in new technology where the store goes beyond the store for how do you order before you get to the store? How do you look at last mile? How do you look at frictionless? All of this. Choice is one of the big words in convenience. It's also one of the big new concepts, and we'll be talking to the CEO and founder of Choice Convenience Stores in just a minute. Welcome to Convenience Matters. My name's Jeff Lenard with NACS.
And I'm Carolyn Schnare, also with NACS.
And today, Carolyn, let's talk about choice, but inconvenience, how choice has evolved to really be one of the dominant things that we have in retail. You can get it this way, you can get it that way, you can pick your own way. A lot of different journeys and customization. And to have this conversation, I'd like to welcome Mike Fogarty, the founder and CEO of Choice, which is a convenience store that, let's just say, it's one of those that's hidden in plain sight in Denver, Colorado, with 3 stores, and they're doing some amazing things there. So welcome, Mike.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate having me. Yep.
So we're familiar with Choice, but probably the best way to start off, Mike, is if you can just give us that overview about what Choice means. Because when you look at your stores, some of the things, you tick all the boxes that are being discussed in our industry today. The idea of frictionless, the idea of delivery, the idea of choice with healthy options, EVs. We can keep going, but we'll let you describe, why did you come up with a concept and how are you executing it?
Yeah, no, thanks, Jeff. And at the end of the day, I think Choice was really founded on the premise that, we saw, really a lack of innovation within this channel. As we all know, I think you look at fuel, you look at cigarettes, you look at high caloric, low nutrition foods, they're all precipitously declining in terms of consumption and utilization, right? And those are 3 very large revenue drivers for this channel and the convenience store channel in general, right? So this is something that's been happening for, several years, 5+ years. And, when we were starting Choice in the business, we wanted to rethink and reimagine what a convenience store can and should be, right? Because we saw something in between the 2,500 square foot legacy C-store operator and the 100,000 square foot warehouse that is today's modern grocer. Neither of which, in our eyes, meets the needs of our target market, which is the urban millennial and Gen Zer that values health, they value convenience, they're shopping 4 or 5 times a week, not once on a Sunday. They're smoking less, if at all. They may have 1 car between a family of 3. All of these macroeconomic and social, changes and just, in trends in general, were right there in plain sight. And yet we didn't feel there was a format and a retailer that's really meeting their needs. They're digitally enabled, all of these different, things. So, Choice was really founded on that premise, that we're going to serve that customer, right? And, and it's fully centered around food. We don't sell cigarettes. We don't sell lottery tickets. We don't, it's high quality food, both on the prepared food side, but also on the grocery side. As you said, Jeff, we have, and it all is enabled by technology, and whether that's the ability to order ahead, to order delivery, to now check in at a store and, utilize the Choice Now frictionless checkout platform. These are, this omnichannel experience is a part of, our core business, and not only improves lifetime value, improves, it reduces our customer acquisition cost. It's a stickier customer, and it's convenient, right? So that is the business we're building, and it's gonna manifest in a number of different formats and in ways, over the course of the next few years and beyond. So.
Yeah, I don't even know which direction to go. I have so many good questions to learn more about what you do. And before I even go to that, I can point out, and Jeff, you can expound on this, but we visited your store for Ideas to Go, for NACS Ideas to Go back in 2019. So I'll put those in the show notes, but certainly check those out because then you can actually see what we're talking about. And Mike, I follow you on Facebook, or not Facebook, I'm sorry, LinkedIn. So I see a lot of what you're talking about and a lot of these really cool concepts. So I think I'm going to start with food because I love food. So I think that was that you were talking about how the premise of convenience all focuses around food. And so and other things, making it easier to get those things. So speaking of food, I know that you've been doing some stuff with like sushi, which is something that usually you don't want to eat gas stations. Sushi has been the butt of jokes, if you will, but not, I would imagine, for you. Now, I've never been to your store, but that's one of the newer concepts you're working with. Yeah. So tell me, how do you decide what's next? What's hot? What are you going to try? And what are some of the offerings you've got out there?
Yeah, we're very well aware of that, I guess, metaphor, right, of this gas station sushi. And it's,
EV charging sushi? Yeah, that's going to be the new one.
And it's vegan sushi at that, right? So it's this, we are very in tune with our customer and their dietary preferences and where food is going in general, I would say. And for us and for, a lot of folks, like veganism, gluten-free, these are two very much massive trends in how people are eating, right? And, we're lucky enough that we started carrying on the wholesale side at all the stores this vegan sushi. A guy named Stephen Lee who started, it's called Wellness Sushi. It's fully plant-based sushi, right? So they're like sous vide tomatoes to look like tuna. They're, dicing up soy with what appears to be a spicy tuna mixture, right? And it all tastes and using the same flavor profiles. So it's it's amazing. I love the product and I tried it, and it's so we started carrying their sushi, probably 3 years ago, or honestly, almost since we started. But, it wasn't until our latest location we always wanted to have a store within a store, which is, it could be sushi, it could be, ice cream, it could be a coffee shop, it could be any non-cannibalizing, business that we feel is incremental to the business. And this was the perfect opportunity to do that, right? We had a perfect space for it. And so we launched that, store within a store at Wellness Sushi about, I think it was probably, 2 weeks ago. And honestly, he's been absolutely crushing it.
That's
and
cool.
And not just sushi, ramen. He's doing, very innovative plant-based products. So, I think food, not just in this particular instance, we'll continue to innovate on that front. We switch our menus out 3 times a year based on the seasonal produce. It is core to the business. Prepared food makes up roughly 50% of our sales, and much higher margin, as I think we all know. And where the average convenience store, I think, it is in the 20% or lower range in terms of just product mix, right? This is what makes Choice unique and different.
And local too, right? You focus a lot on well, obviously you don't have an ocean next to you in Denver, so that's part of the local not plant-based sushi, right?
We have plants. That's all.
Yeah. So thinking, as I mentioned, your 3 stores.
Yeah.
Now to get into and with a smaller operators, the biggest challenge is testing and learning is really not an option. Yeah. The way it is for larger stores or somebody that's more established. So you have this concept of Choice. You introduce it. You're not a trust fund kid that just has somebody else's money. You're putting your own money into this. So how do you determine what's the difference between a good idea and a bad idea when there's such a low margin for risk in this whole retail environment?
It's a great question, Jeff. And honestly, the business was built. I mean, I sold my house and got an SBA loan. that was the founding of the company, right? It wasn't, as you said, I didn't come from money. I didn't have a huge checkbook from VC funding initially, but that has evolved, and we do have now at this point, because we took a risk on the front end, right? And said, this is a concept and a format and an offering that we think people will resonate with our customer, right? And we turned out to be, I think, somewhat right, I guess. And and that traction, people notice that stuff pretty quickly. So now we do have that type of capital and are able to take bigger risks around frictionless checkout technology, around some of the new formats and things that we're doing, but it is a balance, right? It's like, what do you invest in and when do you do that? Not just with technology, but with people and your corporate staff. And it's a chicken and egg thing all the time. It's like, what we're building foundationally is we think a large scalable, national business. Right. And so it's, at this point now, it's like, I think we have the partners on the capital side, on the tech side, and the visibility that, people get it. They understand. Yeah.
So following up on that, talking to a store in its infancy, what was the conversation that took you to funding? Did they find you and say, cool idea, got to talk to these guys? Did you talk to them? Just kind of wondering what kind of insights you'd have for a company that has a couple stores, but really grand visions that it's going to be a couple stores for a while, but we're building for something big.
Yeah, the first investor, a guy named Martin Dolphy, he started a venture capital firm called M3 Ventures. They were invested in Foxtrot, actually, very similar.
Which has made a lot of news in our industry and has a lot of funding right now.
Exactly. They were very interested in this space, but they saw Choice as doing something foundationally a little bit different than Foxtrot around, just product mix or on technology and a few other areas. And so, they found us, honestly. We weren't at the time necessarily looking for funding. It's like, I guess the connotation you're always raising, at that point, we were just trying to build build the business and run the store. At that point it was one store. So it was like, I think for anybody that's in that same space where you have a few stores, but you have this grand vision, I think, you really do have to communicate, whether it's through the press, whether it's through trade shows, whether it's through, folks like yourself. It's like, you have to communicate what makes you different, right? And whether it's technology, whether it's merchandising, whether it's sustainability, whether it's, store design, whatever you feel is the true differentiation between you and another C store, just another C store or market, that's where I think you'll start to resonate with the investment community, with the press, et cetera. And it's I guess it's easier said than done, and I think we got lucky in some ways, right? But these are things that I would say are top of mind if you do have that grand vision. Some people just want 3 stores and just to cash flow it and have a nice life, and we could have easily done that probably, but Choice is very much on the latter, which is we are again building I think a large and sustainable high growth business. So it's it's very much that nuance. And so I think just getting your voice out there and really talking about your differentiation is key.
And we get to say, we knew you when. So in 10 years, when someone goes oh, remember that podcast when he was just getting started?
Yeah. And he won't return our phone calls. But
I will always return your guys' calls.
Oh, I love it. Jeff, what's a phone? Speaking of phone.
Exactly. At that point, it's just going to be an earpiece, right? Or something.
Exactly. And that leads me to my next topic, because you talked about it, which is technology. And I know some of the cool things you're doing are on par with some of the giant corporations, the Amazons of the world. You have walkout checkout. I don't know what it is the best way to say it without breaking some kind of copyright or something, but checkout more than just self checkout, just take your stuff and go kind of thing, and an app, and all of this talks together. And that's just like, it's just beyond cool. And like this last weekend, I was in a convenience store with my daughter, and she's 16, and she's 16. So we were in this one store out in Maryland, and they had a self checkout, and she goes, "There's self checkout in a convenience store?" And I'm like, "Yes, my dear. Yes, there is. It's the new thing." But you've been working on this for a while, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like the 100%, the idea of an omnichannel, and you hear that term a lot, obviously, but like that was foundational for the business from day one. Like even when we wrote the business plan, I knew that this tech was coming. Like, I think Amazon launched their Just Walk Out technology / Amazon Go. I think they made the announcement 3 days after we opened or something. It was like, okay, now they're getting in that space. But like it's convenience will be, in our opinion, will be fueled by technology in the future, and currently and in the future. And convenience looks very different than just quote unquote being open. Like now you have to have the products that I want, at the place that I want, at the price that I want. And all those things have to triangulate, right, in order for it to be truly convenient. And so technology will fuel that level, the new era of convenience. And I think we made the conscious decision to invest in these tools and technology for our customer ahead of like maybe launching a fourth store or fifth store. And that was a very conscious and purposeful decision because we're building a foundation and a tech stack that I think is not just innovative within the C-store industry. I would consider innovative across all food retail, because it's like this one singular application and platform that you can use to order ahead. You can get delivery, you can shop by recipe, you can now check in the store and shop frictionlessly. And that allows us to now expand into new and exciting different formats, not just the 3,000 to 5,000 square foot market that we're currently operating, but 300, 400 square foot fully cashier-less model at a hospital, for instance, that we're going to be launching in Q1 of this year. So we've built the foundation, we've built that tech stack, and now are able to deploy it in a number of different formats and ways that I think are innovative in food retail in general. So it's core to the business. Our customers really appreciate it. The adoption's there, increases basket size, all these things that you hear about, but like this is very real for us.
And speaking of getting your word out there, your name out there, the September NACS magazine had an article about delivery and how do you do it? Do you do third party? Do you bring it? Do you do it on your own, or as they call it, native? Yeah. And you talked about how you have it in-house. That's a lot more work when you have 3 stores. Walk us through how you decided that you wanted to do delivery, and does it make a difference?
Yeah, and we have a hybrid model, right? We still do use third parties, especially on the prepared food side. But with a mobility or transit center with superchargers and fuel, it makes a lot of sense to then create that closed loop, because we use an EV vehicle to deliver. We have e-bikes, and we just announced yesterday we're at Grocery Shop, which is another conference that we're partnering with a company called Tortoise that's a remote controlled electric delivery vehicle. And this will be a pilot that we launch here in October. Initially, it'll be just taking our goods from the commissary to the other 2 stores, but eventually it'll also be last mile to the actual end customer. And so like this, and each of these makes sense. And if you have a large order and it's 3 miles away, it probably makes sense to use a vehicle. If you have a high density urban neighborhood and you have a lot of prepared food, the e-bike that goes 20 miles per hour and can navigate those streets makes a lot of sense. The Tortoise that goes 8 miles per hour, it's probably better for groceries that can, withstand a 30-minute, So each of these, this native, what's called native delivery, for us, A, it's more efficient, it's more cost effective, B, it's more sustainable. And this just is core to our business. Now, are we going to use Uber Eats and third parties? Yeah, we'll continue to use them, and especially on the prepared food side. But I think having some level of hybrid model makes a lot of sense for a lot of folks, and it's ultimately more cost effective. Like at the end of the day, it's more efficient, and we've done the math. Like it's the margins there, So for us, it's efficiency and sustainability that drives that program.
When I see where I think I see where you're going when you're on the Uber Eats and all those platforms, because people need to find you. They might not, like you said, they might not know you're out there yet. And then they see you and then they find that platform and then you say, hey, come on over to this side, use our app or whatever, and we'll save you this or that other thing. But you have to meet them where they are. So if they're already over there, then you bring them back in. I think, is that why you were keeping that in?
Yeah, exactly. Every package that we have has our QR code to download our app. So like even if it's an Uber Eats delivery, they're getting a bag with a Choice Market QR code that says download our app. I don't know if I'm supposed to say that, but regardless,
but
we want them on
a very sustainable packaging bag, right? Of course.
It's just, and at the end of the day, in Uber Eats, you get again, it's mostly prepared food, whereas on our app, you can get the full selection of products. The entire store is deliverable, especially alcohol. We can deliver through our app as well, which Colorado has specific laws around. So there is a very real. You get loyalty points. It's cheaper. Like for the customer, there's an incentive there outside of just downloading the Choice app. And I think, again, it goes back to the technology and the omnichannel experience. When they come in and use the frictionless Choice Now, that's the same app they would use to order delivery. So once they're in the ecosystem, they're more likely to order delivery, or through another channel, BOPUS or whatever.
So in 2019, when I visited your stores, everything you were doing was around trends that really seemed that they were going to be long term. Yeah. The urban customer, people walking to stores, the joy of living in that tight radius. You even had things with Omnichannel where you had fresh food at a vending machine, essentially, at a concert hall. Yeah. A couple months later, COVID changed everything. And the idea that people liked being downtown, that there were even concerts, totally changed. That had to be quite a shock to the system. It was for everybody, but particularly for you with a focus on the downtown customer and omnichannel. What were the kinds of pivots that you made that kept you not just going, but evolved faster?
Yeah. And Jeff, it's like, that store specifically is, at the time we only had one store, and it was Central Business District, Denver. We did a lot of catering. We did a lot of business lunch. It was thriving. It was very much a very active and high revenue store. And we had things like, as you said, starting just in the infancy of building out this omnichannel, platform and formats, and including the vending machines at a music venue and all of that as it was overnight. I mean, I was like, so, through that, obviously we never closed. We were an essential retailer, right? And but we did pivot, right? We started bringing in more conventional, bulk products and things of that nature. Obviously, toiletries and things of that nature that, honestly, other retailers couldn't get. But we leveraged both our supply chains, both the restaurant side and the grocery side, for instance, toilet paper. We were able to get toilet paper because we had this multitude of supply chains, and so certainly we pivoted on the merchandising side. Operating hours we reduced, put in place safety programs, and just survived. Did we thrive in that? No, because I think we all know. During that time frame, most folks were buying their groceries from Amazon or Walmart or one of the big multinational delivery companies and cooking at home, So, but that said, there was still revenue. We still were able to make it through that very rough period for for us and for all convenience stores. I think, as we know, all C stores felt that pain. People weren't driving, people weren't traveling, right? The convenience store industry felt that, especially, as did the restaurant industry, right? But I think in general, we were able to find our place with one store. But meanwhile, we were building 2 other stores during that whole time frame, right? So, and both of those were like delayed by 6 to 8 months because of the pandemic, right? So we didn't build that in the quote unquote cash flow model, right? Like weeks, So I think that for us was even tougher. It was like, well, those 2 stores were supposed to be open 8 months prior and start generating the revenues, and meanwhile we're still building the organization, the tech stack, and everything that we were building. So no doubt, it's it was tough, and then it was, but I think the idea of fresh, convenient, healthy, and accessible food that's on the go was the core to the business, and the things that we had done and built that customer base for delivery, for instance, or built the online pickup capabilities, that was already prior to the pandemic. So like, again, we were well suited. We didn't grow, but we didn't lose 60% of the revenue either. So it's like we were able to make it work,
Well, we had talked about music, and a lot of people in our industry are really into music. And so we'll wrap up, and we'll have more conversations. Love to talk more down the road about some of these other applications. But as I said, a lot of music fans in our industry, and you'll hear everybody has their favorite bands. We know that yours is Phish, and you've seen them well more than 100 times. Thought it was interesting when you mentioned that. And it's like, oh, yeah, Mike Gordon, the bass player, his father was chairman of NACS a couple decades ago. His whole chairman's speech was quoting a Phish song. And, of course, Phish also has Phish food ice cream. And Ben & Jerry's, their first store was at a gas station. So the links to our industry are endless if you want to draw them. So if you're a Phish fan, get in touch with Mike as well, in addition to 100%. All these other things. But so you've seen a lot of Phish shows. You have a lot of Phish music. Is there a certain lyric or a song that inspires you, that relates to all these things you're doing in defining your concept of choice convenience stores?
There's Phish has a large catalog, as some may know. It's probably 400 or 500 songs. As it relates to choice, I mean, there's a song called Reba. It's bag it, tag it, sell it to the butcher in the store. And certainly that's a more direct, correlation to what we're, just choice and offering high quality products, but I think, one of the better lyrics is like, keep what's important and know who's your friend. And it's from the Bottom. And it's, to me, it's just, it's a very poignant and awesome lyric as a part of an awesome song. And so I think in general, we all want to keep what's important and know who's our friend. And then these are certainly lyrics that, resonate with me. And I think in general, Phish sings a lot of metaphors and similes, right? It may seem like children's music to some, but it's really a deeper meaning underneath it all.
So if you're in the band Phish and you want to play a 3-song acoustic set at a choice market, I think Mike can have that as well next time you're coming through playing Red Rocks. So with that, want to thank you, Mike. The idea of choice and what you're doing, the technology, it really is, you have gotten out there in the press, and Google choice stores to learn more. The Ideas to Go segment is under convenience.org/ideas to go with the number 2, like Prince songs from, I believe that was 2018. I believe we visited you guys.
Yeah.
So a lot of cool things going on out there. And I think that there's a lot of innovation at the large stores. There's a lot of innovation at the smaller stores. Thanks for leading it. And we look forward to hearing more of your success and talking more about your success. So thank you, Mike, for joining us today.
Yeah, appreciate having me. It's been a pleasure.
And thank you for listening to Convenience Matters.
Convenience Matters is brought to you by NACS and produced in partnership with Human Factor. For more information, visit convenience.org.